This is Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest. Joining me today is the president and CEO of Azucar Minerals, Mr. Morgan Poliquin. Morgan, how are you this afternoon?
I'm doing very well, thanks very much. And you?
Excellent, excellent. Looking forward to the holidays. It's been a busy week of news. We just had a Fed decision. They increased they did a rate hike, 0.25%. Expected. Doesn't seem like it's moving the markets too much. You had some exciting news yesterday that I wanted to talk about at the El Cobre project, specifically from the Norte target, which is one of multiple porphyry centers. Can we talk about the news yesterday a bit, Morgan?
Delighted to do so. We were really pleased to put that out. We've been working on the Norte zone, trying to define which direction the mineralization is going and what we call a late mineral intrusive, and all those things have come together here. So it was really nice to be able to put that out in a few sections in a way I hope people can readily understand.
Let's dig into it a little bit. So the headline number says Azucar hit 70.2 meters of 1.07 grams per ton gold and 0.35% copper at the Norte target. So before we get into the geologic takeaways that I thought were important, can you provide a brief overview of what you've outlined thus far at the Norte target? And then we'll talk about the other zones and some of the key findings.
Sure, great. This was kind of what really kicked off the excitement 2 years ago at El Cobre. El Cobre's part, the Norte zone, is one of 5 zones on the project, as you alluded to. So we're quite excited about the project's potential in its entirety. But this zone has been evolving nicely with our drill program over the last couple of years. And what we've been able to do here is finally kind of outline which direction the mineralization is going, and we feel that it clearly projects to surface. We've been drilling angle holes on either side, and the geometry has really come together nicely for us. So I know you had some specific geologic questions, but hopefully that's a good way of introducing that.
Absolutely, and let's get to it. You mentioned in the release that there's a late mineral and barren to weakly mineralized intrusive, which occurs in the middle of the Norte zone, but it tops out about 400 meters below the current surface. Why is that important to understand? And then I also want to talk about the fact that mineralization may be preserved, as you say in the release, along its flanks and the implications there.
Yeah, well, this is a really common phenomenon in a porphyry environment. So what porphyries are, the mineralization can be distal or disconnected from an intrusion. And an intrusion is basically what we call a plug of hot magma that comes up, and those plugs of hot magma keep coming up even after the mineralization has formed. So sometimes the later ones are not producing mineralization, and they come up in the middle, and they're basically, you've got a lump of low grade or barren granite that's in the middle of your porphyry. And what typically happens with these high level, they form near the surface. Relative to copper porphyries, gold copper porphyries, they form closer to surface, is that these later granite bodies or plugs that come up, it's in many cases it's seen that they actually displace the mineralization through big structures and different mechanisms out to the side. So this thing is sort of in the middle, and if you look at a lot of porphyry gold copper pits around the world, you'll find a barren zone in the middle. It's true in Bingham Canyon or Bajo de la Nebrera, and you've got this barren thing in the middle, and with the mining all the way around it. So it's really important spatially to define that barren thing. And typically these things aren't circular in cross-section. They're more ellipsoid, meaning they're longer in one direction than others. And when you're drilling, if you don't have that elongated direction well understood, you might be drilling along it or coming in and out of it. Drill holes like to wander around a little bit. And so I think our early drilling, which was some of it was north-south and it just kind of didn't define this late mineral granite. Let's call it granite for the sake of argument. Plug. It didn't define it very well, and so as we went on with our drilling, we were able to see that the mineralization, we think, trends northeast, so not east-west, how we originally thought. So we've shifted our drilling orientation, and that's now nicely defined this thing. So again, it's a work in progress, but I think we have enough drilling to be able to put out these conceptual cartoon-like sections which show the target areas, which are along strike. We feel that the zone is still open. We haven't fully closed it off by any means, and it's also open to depth and along the flanks of that granite plug. So hopefully that's not too obtuse, and people can understand what we're talking about.
You mentioned the cartoon-like cross-section. I thought it was excellent, especially for a layman like myself. I couldn't help but notice the potential for a high-grade porphyry at depth, which obviously would be a pretty significant prize. How far down are you testing that? We talked last time. I know you got a new drill that can go down a couple of kilometers, if I'm not mistaken. How far down are you going to poke and see what's down there?
Well, we have a few geologic signals that we think are important. Number one, we recognize that just in general terms, the El Cobre project, the porphyries exposed there, are all at the tops of the Porphyrian system, the level of exposure we have, and regionally we see alteration that is above the level of the Porphyry system, such as at the Cabal Blanco project, which is nearby. So this is eroded down to the top of the Porphyry environment. So what that means is that those high grade zones that could exist, if they're going to be below us. And we see some other interesting signs from fluid inclusion work, which is little bits of the fluid that formed the veins, the mineralizing veins, are actually trapped by the crystals that they're forming, these bits of fluid. And you can go and look at them. Sounds very esoteric, but you can look at them and see the temperature and pressure conditions which formed the veins in the first place, and that tells you where you are in the system. And that also tells us we're very high in the system, meaning the potential for high grade is beneath us. And then furthermore, we have these minerals are really important copper minerals in porphyry systems in telling you where you are. And typically bornite, it's a really high copper mineral. It is usually at the heart of the system is where you see the bornite. So it's deeper into the best part of the system. And we're starting to see bornite increase, we think, with depth. That's an observation we're making. It's more chalcopyrite dominated at the top, which is a lower copper mineral. So the copper increases with depth is essentially what we're saying. And we see that phenomenon. So all the signals are we need to go deeper. We've got pretty significant mineralization. As you point out, we talked about a big interval of 1 gram and 0.3 plus copper, but we're also starting to see some. If you look at the news release, there's some higher copper intervals that are shorter, 0.4, 0.5% copper over shorter intervals, and we're hoping that that's a signal that copper is increasing with depth. And so, in terms of how far down, we don't know, but porphyry systems can be continuous over a kilometer of vertical. So that's pretty exciting. We haven't tested that vertical interval yet, and there's some deeper holes to drill. And as you can see, also laterally, we haven't fully explored it. So there's lots of things to do from here, but the drilling we've done to date, in the form of these cross sections, has really defined the system in terms of conceptually how to test it next.
Well, should be a busy 2019. I understand that drilling is underway at the Villarrica target, the Norte zone, and the Porvenir zone. You own your own rigs. You're using 3 of those rigs to drill. I anticipate 2019 will have lots of news flow. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely. It's going to be an exciting year. We think that there are, as yet, even undefined targets. There are geochemical anomalies that don't have names assigned to them yet. So while those 3 are going to be the principal focus, owing to the fact we've made discoveries there, it's a huge area, and we think we're really just getting going. And as you can see with the Norte zone, it takes a while to kind of comprehend what you're dealing with. Sometimes they just turn into very simple drill programs, but usually in these gold-rich porphyries, that's not the case. So it's been an exciting year, and 2019 is going to be a very intense year, and we look forward to reporting results as they come in.
Morgan, thank you so much for your time. All the best.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas to you and all your listeners.
Merry Christmas to you as well, Morgan. Thank you.
Thanks.